Right, we are live. It appears to be. So, welcome to Midwest Design Week, the Wednesday lunch event. I'm really excited to be here with you all. If you're not already familiar, Midwest Design Week is a collaboration between 4 AIGA chapters, and we are presenting our very first virtual conference. And so this was a huge undertaking for us, but we're excited to learn and grow with you. AIGA is the American Institute for Graphic Artists, and it is 75 chapters strong across the continental United States, including Hawaii, actually. So that's a fun fact. But we are dedicated to promoting design as a profession and a force for good. And so I wanted to do a quick shout out to our sponsors. So I'll put their names up on the screen, but this week definitely would not have been possible without their support. And so I wanted to thank all of our sponsors. Promoting design as a profession. And let me get them live on the screen really quickly. All right. Cool. So these are our sponsors. Let me see if that's actually showing. Probably. All right. Hopefully you guys can see our sponsors because they are incredible. They made this possible and they're really invested in the creative communities of the Midwest. We aren't the coast, but we are really strong and super creative. So thank you, Old Speak, for being our premier sponsor, as well as everyone else who's been involved in financially supporting this event. I'll go ahead and stop sharing. So who you guys are all here for today is actually Eso Tolson. He is a hand lettering artist, activist, brand strategist, and just overall cool guy. So I am thrilled to hand over the mic to him so that he can tell you all about his journey and what he likes to do.
Cool. Thanks, John. Hi, guys. I'm Eso Tolson, and we're going to be talking about some things today. We're going to be talking about how to, if you're a letterer or a letter artist or however you want to say that, this is about how to stand out in a world where there's a lot of information, a lot of artists who are doing things, but I'm going to give you some tips to stand out. And I'll also use your voice and how to use your voice, all right? So we're gonna go to this screen here and let me know if you can see the screen. Hopefully you can. And we're gonna go full screen.
Yeah, we can
like that. There we go. So this presentation is about how to take a stand with lettering. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself and how I was able to do that, all right? So again, I'm Eso, a lettering artist and brand strategist. I have 10 plus years of experience in design and branding, but this recent thing of lettering is something that is newer and something that I had to really figure out. My pieces that I was doing were turning into something bigger than what could just stand to just be in my notebook, right? So going to talk about how all of this happened. But before I go further, I have a disclaimer. I'm not really sure what people had in mind about this talk or presentation. So I just want to talk about what the talk isn't, all right? So what this presentation is not about. It's not about brush kits to use in your next piece or what watercolors to use or inks or any of that, or paper. This isn't about that. It's also not about ways to draw an S or G or a Q or any letter, you know, in cursive and script, but this isn't about that either, so sorry. It's not about hand techniques. This isn't about how to use, the pen quill to make the best wedding invitations or the upcoming greeting cards for this holiday season. This isn't about that. And it's not about the discussion of digital versus analog. Whether you should be using a Sharpie and going straight to the paper, or go to Procreate and learn about that. This isn't about any of those things. So if you wanted it to be that, I'm sorry, not sorry, but I do have some things that I think that will be beneficial, right? So this is what this presentation is about, and what you learn. You learn about my journey in hand lettering and how I use hand lettering as a tool for activism and celebration and pride and community. Also, you're going to learn skills to help you develop a feel and voice to your work that will speak to people and just resonate totally with who you are, and it'll set you apart from other people and other artists. And also what it takes to show up authentically and become that artist that sparks conversations, that ignites pride, and really impact communities. And so that's what this presentation is about. So hopefully you're still with me. Hopefully you didn't, click the X and check out. Hopefully we're still here. So here we go. Here we go. Tip 1, start with your why. This is very important because there are a lot of artists that are out there. There are a lot of different, perspectives. There's a lot of different, techniques that people use to get their message across. So it's very important for you to know why you do what it is that you do. What is it that you care about? What is your message to the world? Miles Davis said this: "Man, sometimes it takes you a long time to sound like yourself." And that's true for everyone, but for me, because again, I'm fairly new. I would say I'm new to this hand lettering game. My background is in design and branding. I've been doing that for about 13 plus years or so. And that's what I know to do. I know about that. I know about that world. And my love for typography and my love for great composition leaned into me doing more stuff in lettering, but I'm comfortable with doing graphic design. And so my journey started in 2014. The year before, I was a freelance designer, and I was, if we got the freelance designers in here, you know what I'm talking about. We're usually doing the service, and we're doing check to check and trying to make the ends meet. And that's exactly where I was. And so design is a service job. It's a creative job. You can use art in that, but it is a service job. And the thing about that is I didn't have time for me. I'm an artist at heart, and I was doing work for clients, which is designed, but I needed something that was for me. And so in 2014, I got this job with a nonprofit, and they were about having pride for the city. I'm based in Memphis, Tennessee. And so it was a pride for the city. It was a pride for the things that were happening at the time. And they hired me to be their designer, and I didn't have to worry about check to check situations. I knew exactly where my money was coming from, and that took a load off of me. And so I could really just think about, what does something for me even look like? I had something to say, in my artwork. I had been used to helping people with their business, helping them with their messaging, and creating strategies for them. But I needed something for me, and so lettering was my way into that. It was my love letter to my community. It was my love letter to the city, the people I love, and it was my way back into art. It was my outlet. And so I take lettering seriously because it's very personal. But that's where I started, and it really helped me find my voice. The great thing about lettering is it's words, and so words have power, and so it's really important what you do with those words. Um, and when you base your art around your why, you'll have art that always says something. And so your why is the things that you care about, the things that matter to you, and that's what's going to really connect with people. Um, but it took a while to find out what that looked like, you know, for your voice and what you care about. But when you continue doing the journey, going on the journey to find out what it is that you care about, that's when your art will really speak to people. And so, yeah, tip one, start with your why. Tip two, don't make it cute, make it say something. Now, what do I mean when I say that? All right, we're going to go to this quote by Milton Glaser. It's one of my favorite. The next time you see a 16 color, blind embossed, gold stamped, die cut, elaborately folded and bound job printed on handmade paper, see if it isn't a mediocre idea trying to pass for something else. And people in the hand lettering world have, you know, seen things that were really, really pretty. All right. And I think for me, it wasn't really speaking to me. Now there were very beautiful things that I would see, but it wasn't really for me. It's like a lot of icing, a lot of sprinkles, but it's not like, where's the cake? You know, where's that part? And I think that's what I wanted to see. So when I first got on Instagram, I, you know, was in a sea of Instagram posts that were about the proper way to hand letter, and the same thing with Pinterest. And it was cool. You know, you had things on there talking about, you know, coffee before you talk to me, you know, in a script, and Friday, and nope. It was just a piece that said nope, you know, and it's cute, but it wasn't really connecting. Not for me. I didn't connect to any of those posts because I'm not a big coffee drinker. Friday isn't, you know, my thing, and nope, I don't really get with nope. But I wanted to say something. It wasn't those things, but I just wanted to say something different. And the thing about saying something different is you're going against the norm. You're going against the status quo. And when you do things like that, you know, that's scary. And so it was scary when I first started doing my thing, if you will. And so going back to the job that I got back in 2018 or 14 rather, I, you know, with my first check that I got from them, I went straight to an art store and I got some supplies. I got some Sharpies, some Micron pens, and I got a notebook and I started sketching ideas. And the stuff that I was doing then looks nothing like I was doing, you know, that I'm doing now, but I was I was so excited to start drawing and lettering and getting ideas out that I cared about. And so it started like this. None of this looks like any of the work that I do now, but I I wanted to make something that I wanted to see and something that connected with me. And so my thing is about positivity, you know, self affirmations, pride, celebration, and with the wisdom, the little wisdom I have, I just wanted to put that in the world. And so I came up with these, you know, pieces. And sometimes I would be at, you know, a friend's house, or I would be at, you know, an event, and I would create these pieces. But, you know, I didn't really have a style, you know, I just wanted to say something. And so this was my way of saying something, you know, be kind and keep going no matter what. Don't stop, keep going. You know, the things that were encouraging and uplifting people. Um, but I didn't really have a style when I started in 2014. I literally was doing that all 2014 and even the middle part of 2015. I was just creating things. And Instagram was my way of being accountable to creating something. So I just kept doing and posting. And then I landed on this. And so while I was doing the posting and the experimentation, I was also looking at some inspiration. Things that I love inner city life. And so you got a lot of graffiti or a lot of tagging of things. And so I pulled, this style is reminiscent of that. I love the immediacy of, you know, tags, and it's quick and it's to the point. So there's a little bit of that there, but there's also a little bit of calligraphy that's in there as well. I love um, the just the overall form of the letters. It's very refined. It's beautiful, and so there's that quality there as well. But also, I love sign painting. You know, you've seen the signs on the side of a brick building, or somebody painted the name of a company on the side of a truck or something like that. I took inspiration from that as well. So it took me, you know, over a year consistently doing work and looking at other inspiration to come up with something that looked like this. And this is a quote from Martin Luther King: "Let no man pull you so low as to hate him." So it was my words that I wanted to put out there, but also I looked to people that I admire and quotes that really spoke to me. And so that's what really got a ball moving with my lettering. And so I started to create. And the one time I did go to a coffee shop, you know, I did this. So this is a shop in Memphis, City and State. Yay coffee, that's their slogan. But also this quote by Stephen Sagmeister over here: "Obsessions make my life worse and my work better." And it's the opportunity to use my gold Sharpie. I was very excited about that. And then I landed on this project here. Now, this was the biggest project I had been a part of at that time. This is 2015. And a friend of mine had an opportunity to do work for the city. He was doing banners for light posts on Main Street. And it was about celebrating the energy that was happening in Memphis at the time. And it was about really reinforcing this idea of community. And so he wanted me to do some lettering pieces based on Al Green's songs, "Love and Happiness" and "Let's Stay Together." And so I was excited that somebody was, you know, looking for me to do some like hand lettering work. Up until that point, all of my stuff was just on Instagram and in my notebook, sketchbook. But somebody really thought that my stuff was cool enough to be bigger than what I thought it was going to be. And so I started making sketches, and I was really getting down into it. And I started having imposter syndrome. I was like, can I even do this? Is my work good enough? And I had that thought because I was doing stuff that wasn't really out there, or at least I hadn't seen. And so I didn't know if I was doing it the right way. Again, it was scary just being out there. And so I had to call my friend and I said, "Hey friend, do you really want me to do it in this unique, you know, crazy style?" And he said, "Man, I look to you to do what it is that you do. And I love what you've already done. I want that style." And I said, okay. And I had to trust him. And it was an opportunity to bet on myself as well. And so even though I did 2 other versions that looked more like what was already out there, I leaned into what I was doing and I came up with this. This is the first piece, Love and Happiness. And then the second one was Let's Stay Together. And so I sent those to him and he was the designer and the result came out like this. And so they were all along the post, all on Main Street. This one and the few other ones that I had done and a few creations he had done. And I was blown away. I was like, wow, I had never seen my work like this ever before. But it didn't start out like that. It took time, it took a lot of practice, but the most important thing was what it was saying and the message behind it. And so I started just playing around with what I can do with this style. You know, I did this on a Tuesday. And it was just a way for me to practice and practice and practice and practice. Because I felt like I was on something with this style. And, you know, my friend had already validated it. And so I'm like, all right, well, you know, can't nobody tell me anything. And so I kept going and I landed on this. I'm gonna try to make this story quick. So this happened on St. Patrick's Day, and I was with a friend and we went to a bar. There was a few bars in the area, and so a few people were bar hopping. And we get to a table and this young lady comes to our table and it looked like she was, you know, running away from something or someone. And she was, but it wasn't terrorizing or anything. She was just annoyed. And so she wanted to share her frustrations with us. And apparently a guy was in town. I think he was from England and thought that she was cute and she didn't like him. And so she was, you know, venting to us like, this guy, he keeps, you know, trying to talk to me. And, you know, he has this accent and, you know, I don't really like him. He just really needs to get in touch with his inner Memphis. And that stood out to me. And I was like, wow, get in touch with your inner Memphis. There's something in that. And so later that night, I had this idea. I was sketching it out and get in touch with was too bulky for me. And I was like, what else could I say? Embrace. So then I put embrace your inner Memphis, right? And I put that out into the world like I, you know, usually do. And local organizations start picking it up and they were like, yes, this is what the city needs right now. And, you know, I got about 50 likes on it and that was big for me. So I was like, oh, I won for the weekend. And then a few more local organizations and really influential people in Memphis started sharing the piece. And I was like, this is incredible. And then one day somebody said they wanted it on a shirt. And I hadn't even thought about that as a thing. And so I talked to my business partner. She does websites and branding as well. And I talked to a friend of mine who did screen printing. And so I put a pre-order out there and the result turned to this. I didn't even know this was going to be on a shirt, but people really resonated with the message of what it was talking about. It was about community. It was about taking pride in the city. And that was something that people felt like was important. And so they embraced Memphis. And I did a photo shoot and I still sell these today. They've been seen all around the world. Sydney, Australia, Singapore, Jerusalem, several other places. There's a Embrace Your Inner Memphis t-shirt there. And so I was really noticing how people were responding to what I was saying. the messaging around it. And I went further with that. There's very specific vernacular that's here in Memphis. It's a little bit country, it's a little bit inner city. And so there's a lot of this southernness that's there. And so there's all of these things. And I pulled that out and I did that for a project. And that turned into this here. And so the language is very colorful. The language is kind of brash, but it's very everyday, general vernacular of the people here. And I just wanted to celebrate that as well. And so I came up with this project to celebrate that vernacular, that everyday common language, again, with this style that I developed. And so I was noticing how important it was for what you're saying to be the main focus. And so when you're lettering, start with the words, then allow the aesthetic to elevate your message and not the other way around. So in other words, make the cake and then add the icing, if that makes sense. Hopefully you all are still with me on this, but that's really important when you're doing lettering work, at least for me to stand out. It's really about those words. And then how it looks, that can look any kind of way, as long as you know what you're doing with those words and those aesthetics to communicate the overall message. That's what it's about. So that's tip 2. Now, tip 3 and the final tip is take a stand. All right. And what do I mean by taking a stand? Alexander Hamilton says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Right. So on this hand lettering journey that I'm on, my work is out there. I've had exhibitions, selling work, and, I'm getting commissioned for things. And so I did a few commissions that were fun. I did some that weren't as fun. And I had to sit with why they weren't as fun as the ones that were. And it was because the projects that weren't as fun didn't really align with my values. They didn't align with the things that I cared about, and they didn't align with things that, meant something to me. So it wasn't fueling me, and this is my artwork, then, why am I doing this stuff? And so I had to make, boundaries. I had to set boundaries. And so, are you setting boundaries with your work? It's very important to do that, because when people know that you got a skill, even, just art. I don't know if you all were in high school drawing, but, people find out you can draw, they want you to draw them stuff, all right? Can you draw Mickey Mouse? Can you draw, any other cartoon characters? People are gonna ask, because they see value in what it is that you do. But you have to make a stance on, hey, I am not gonna be doing this. I'm going to be working on these, which is also why it's important to know what your why is. So I personally don't do logos with my work because I think logos should be something that is void of any other affiliation. And my work is my work and it's my style and all that. So I don't do things like that. And I don't do things that don't align with my core values. And so I had to make this type of decisions so I don't create work that I'm not interested in, and also that I'm not proud of. Things that are happening now, there is something to stand for, there's something to discuss, there's something to talk about. And now is not the time to be on the fence about issues. People need to know where it is that you stand. And we all know things that have happened in 2020. Injustices, there are some terrible things, there are some tragic things that have happened. And people have voices. You have a voice, and as an artist, that's kind of your responsibility. The artist must take sides. Paul Robeson. When you're in this art thing, you have to pick a side. You have to talk about what you're for and what you're against. Um, and lettering is a great way to use your voice to do that. If people have the capacity to read, they have the capacity to be moved by what it is that you say. And I had to learn that, because as much as I was so, um, I was so ingrained into the work that I was doing, I didn't realize just how ingrained I was into what I was actually saying. These are some pieces that I've done this year. This Stops Right Now is a piece that I created with an organization called Fine Acts, and they specialize in projects that have artists to meet civil justice, and they combine those worlds. And so this was my piece for that. And then a personal piece that I did, There's No Normal to Go Back to, period. And that's talking about the COVID-19 pandemic that is happening, and people like, let's go back to normal. And it's like, there is no normal. This is the time to reimagine things. This is the time to recreate or rethink what things can be. And so that was my voice. That's what I was sharing. And I was sharing, things of this nature. And it was really resonating with people, so much that they were resonating more with my words than the actual lettering art. And I did this post on Instagram. I use Twitter as well. And I shared this. I don't know who needs to hear this, but don't ever think paying an artist is doing them a favor. And I had the most likes, the most shares that I've ever had. And it wasn't a hand lettered piece. It was literally me sharing my thoughts. It was me sharing my things that I cared about, and a community that I cared about, because I'm an artist, and we should be paid our worth. And that spoke to a lot of people, more than I thought that it would. And because I was sharing my voice in this unique way, it afforded me a lot of opportunities. IKEA in Memphis, uh, the manager who I had been doing work with off and on thought that it would be great for me to talk to their staff. And I was talking about pride. I was talking about community in Memphis. And I was talking about staying together and uplifting each other and being a stronger community. And that wasn't lettering as much as it was with using my voice, and also showing people where I stood on issues. That made a clear direction for people to seek me out for that thing, because it's what I was putting out into the world. And it afforded me opportunities to work with incredible people. This is a piece that I did for Francesca Ramsey. If anybody knows who that is, uh, she's an activist, she's a writer and comedian, and she is probably one of the first viral sensations, if you will. And she put out a book last year. And this is one of the chapters in the book: Stop Hating, Start Studying. And she commissioned me to do this for a few promo pieces for her book. And that probably wouldn't have happened if I hadn't shared my stance on things, what was important to me. And because I was doing that, that was like a signal to people who were looking for those things. And so it's been an incredible ride of just sharing what's important to me. And when you take a stand, that is what brings those dream clients. That is what's going to bring those opportunities that you want. And so it doesn't matter what those things are. It can be about cats. If you love cats and you want to talk about rights for cats or whatever, you create work that's specifically about that thing and watch the things that happen. You might have PetSmart coming in after you, like, hey, can you do this piece for us? Because they know where you stand. And so here are a few takeaways from all of this. Know what you want to put out into the world. I know that seems like a daunting task, but you can do that by, it's a journey. And when you practice and when you go along the journey, you're going to pick up things and you're going to find what is important to you and what you want to put out into the world. So do that. Also, know what you stand for. That's very important. Know what you want to say, because those words matter. And you're going to be speaking to people. So knowing what you want to say is going to be important as well. And also let your message dictate your style and not the other way around. There's a lot of ways to hand letter. There's a lot of different aesthetics to letters, fonts and all those things. And so it's important to know what it is that you want to say, and you have those things to add color and add texture to the message, and not the other way around. And finally, know what you want to do with those words. If you're going to say something that says, "Can you hear me?" and the canvas is large and you have "Can you hear me?" large on the canvas, that says something different than if you had that same large canvas and you had "Can you hear me?" in the corner, right? That says something different. So it's important to know what you want to do with those words and what you want to say. And then you use all of those tricks in your bag with color and technique to really push that message home. So that's my presentation. If you want to follow, my journey, you can follow me at esotolson.com. And you subscribe to my newsletter, or you could just actually follow me on Instagram and Twitter alike at Cool Urban Hippie. Thank you all for listening, and we're going to go to Q&A. If anyone has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Yes.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Eso, for sharing. That was super informative. I definitely learned a lot when it comes to design and what projects to pick up, being intentional about the work that you do. So I think that's amazing. I was going to kick off the Q&A and then we'll go to the chat for additional ones. But
Okay.
I was kind of curious about your process. So it definitely sounds like you start with the words. Do you move to the sketching phase and some don't make the cut, or do you always kind of get all the way through to a final piece?
So everything is a sketch, and I used to do several sketches. I'm now in a place where it's more refined of that process, but definitely a sketch. And I'm editing the sketch, and I'm actually going more digital now than I ever have. I'm on Procreate, and I'm doing a lot of sketching on Procreate, but there's a lot of editing that I'm doing to the sketches, and I'm moving stuff around and I'm shifting things, and I really sit with it to see how I feel about it first before I do anything else with it. And so, yeah, sketching is the biggest part of it. Or even if I do it, analog with just, pen and paper, I do the sketch. And then once I feel really good about the sketch, then I go ahead and do the piece itself. But sketching is key.
Awesome. Yeah. I assumed as much. I just wanted to hear more about that. So that was super cool to hear about. Allie or Ashley, do either of you want to take over and read some from the chat?
Yeah. One of the first ones was, how do you overcome fatigue and find work-life balance while keeping up with Instagram and self-promotion?
Ooh, that's a good one. So lately, in this season, it was a little different last year, but in this season that we're in, I have to protect my energy in a very real way, and really be intentional with my time. And so with projects, I'm still doing project work with my business partner. And so we're still doing branding and web design, the visuals and consulting. So I'm still doing that. But for my lettering stuff, I come up with a rhythm that works for me, and I'm not really pressured by posting every day. I don't really have to do that. It's really by what I'm inspired by. So if I want to talk about things that are about what's happening now in, current news, or if it's something in a conversation that I had with a friend that sparked an idea or anything like that, then I would do a piece. But it's not for me about balance. It's not balance. It's more about harmony, because balance usually means that things have to be equal, and it's like equal this and equal that. For me, it's about harmony. It's like, how do all of these things work together? So even if it's just like a little percentage here and then a bigger here or whatever, it's about how all those things work together. Because sometimes it's smaller here this week, and then that may be bigger, and then this gets smaller. So it's about adjusting things often. And I guess the most important part is to not feel guilty about making those adjustments. It's like, am I doing enough? Am I not doing enough? Should I be doing more? And just doing what feels best for you at that moment, especially with things the way they are now. That's important.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's like not to feel guilty about putting that pressure on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any more comments or tips about overcoming imposter syndrome?
Ooh. um, it's a challenge, mainly because there's going to be a bit of that at each level, I believe. I don't think that is something that we fully get over. I think it's something that we sit with at each level. My first level was, is my work good enough? And so now I believe that my work is good enough, but people are seeking me out to be the go-to person to talk about this thing. Now, yes, I've been doing this thing. I've been talking about this thing, but it's like, oh no, now there's a light and now I'm doing this thing. And so at this level, it's just something different. Now, I may be more comfortable with this, a year or two from now, but then I'm sure there's going to be another level of, oh, now I'm doing this or now I'm doing that. And I think it's just constantly doing a check-in with yourself and realizing that, if the Queen of England says that you're good enough to do X, Y, and Z, like, who are you to question that? If you're invited to the party, who are you to say that I don't belong at the party? If the person who is throwing the party invites you, then just come to the party. So I think it's just realizing that there's going to be a taste of that imposter syndrome there, but don't give into it. It's just keep going, keep creating, keep doing your thing, and you'll get through it.
Definitely. We have a couple of Slack questions that kind of go together. Do you have any design heroes, or also, how do you continue to stay inspired? Who are you following? What are you reading? What are you watching? What's going on with your pop culture?
Okay. I create my Instagram feed to stay inspired. Literally, it's not with people that I know personally that I went to high school with and all that. Like, you're not inspiring me, so no. But people who are inspirational to me, there are people like Joel Leon. He's a writer. I follow a lot of writers actually, and a lot of people who talk about mental health. I follow a few artists, a lot of hand letterers that I'm inspired by. And I look at things that bring me joy, honestly, things that are life-giving. I've curated, somewhat of a bubble for me to stay inspired. And I talk with friends, and I have a few coffee table style books that are full of quotes and, saying inspirational things. One of my favorite writers is Austin Kleon. He's the writer of the book. I'm gonna have to look at How to Steal Like an Artist.
Yeah.
He has a book also called Show Your Work, and Show Your Work was a big inspiration to the work that I'm doing now, especially just writing, doing pieces in my sketchbook and then posting those online. He had this section talking about, doing something every day, whatever that thing is, and, creating habits and rhythms of, just getting stuff, creating content. Whether it's for you or the world, do some stuff for the world, but also stuff for you as well. But yeah, things like that are the things that keep me moving and keeping me inspired, especially in times like this. That and good music. That and good music.
Always got to have good music. We got a lot of Austin Kleon love in the chats too. That's awesome. Actually, kind of piggybacking off of this is a good segue. We also have a question about kind of, you spoke a little bit about balance versus harmony and people, struggling with kind of trying to find that balance in work versus passion.
Mm-hmm.
How are you specifically kind of handling that balance in your life? When's your work time and when's your play time? Is that separate for you?
Yes, it's had to be separate recently. During the beginning of the pandemic, or I'll just say quarantine specifically, I work from home. I work remotely, me and my business partner. And so I was kind of home anyway. But what's been happening is, people are contacting you, people are like, you're at home, so you're accessible. And so, you're getting messages, you're getting emails, you're getting calls, you're getting, all kind of stimuli coming at you. And so I had to create boundaries, so when it was work time, I had to stick to that work time. So this is work. This is where we do work. And my business partner is a good friend of mine. Her name's Dana James Mwange. You can Google her. She's doing amazing things. But she's my friend, and so we have to be very intentional about our friend time and also our work time. And then also I need me time, and then I gotta eat. I gotta sleep and do all of these things throughout the day, and so it's being intentional about making those boundaries and doing that because I love other people and I also love myself. And so boundaries really help with that. You're not bent out of shape because your best friend called you and it's like, or, or things like that. Creating those boundaries really it's helped me make those distinctions. And so even though I enjoy my work, I love the work that I do, I love my art that I do, but that's also still work. And there's energy that goes into that. And there's, a lot of intention and all that. And so if you don't create those boundaries, you'll, just kind of just start spiraling out of control and, you don't know which way is up and like what is happening. And so to keep that that harmony, if you will, in your life, it's about making sure you have those boundaries on things. So if it's going to be play, make it play and play hard. But then when it's time to work, make sure you get the work done. And then it's time for yourself where it's just rest hard. All right. So that's what I'll say to that.
We have a question from Amanda. It says, do you do any graffiti lettering in the aerosol? And if so, does it help lettering on paper?
No, I've never tagged. I always wanted to, or just graffiti, not necessarily tagging. But I'm inspired heavily by graffiti, and so I've tried my my own version of graffiti, but not with an aerosol can, like just literally on a little sketchbook and a Sharpie. I would just come up with something, but I'm very inspired by a lot of artists. I have a few friends who are graffiti artists and muralists, and I look at their work, and yeah, I think I want to add that. Thank you for that question. I'm gonna add that to my things to do. I'm gonna follow them or shadow them and learn how they do what they do. But I don't. But I'm very, very inspired by graffiti.
I want to add on to that. Sorry, I'm going to ask
no.
my own question, but do you ever experiment with other mediums, or do you stick to what you normally do?
I'm just now really venturing out into other mediums. I'm very simple in that way. And then when I get a rhythm, I'm like, this works. So but I force myself or challenge myself to think of other things. And honestly, looking at other artists, creatives, and just lettering artists themselves helped me with that. Anybody knows Ade Hogue? He's incredible, and he specializes in using all kind of things. He uses M&Ms, he uses cut paper and sugar and syrup and flowers and all of that to just create these words. And so I'm inspired by his work. I'm inspired by other artists that are taking the challenge of using other mediums. And so I'll definitely venture out in those things. That'll be something that I'll practice myself. And then when I'm comfortable sharing that with the world, I'll share that with the world. But definitely is something that I'm looking into, and this season is challenging me to do even more.
Awesome. We're running out of questions. Does anybody else have anything else?
I did see one more in the Slack chat. So Grace asks, do you have any suggestions on how to start hand lettering? Is it something, it's something I would really love to learn to do better, but I'm not quite sure where to start. Also, do you have any suggestions on how to transfer hand lettering into a computer if you don't have a tablet?
Yes. I just recently got a tablet, right? All of my stuff was in my sketchbook. And so I guess I'll go back and answer the first part of the question. How you get started? You literally just start. When I got the job that I was telling you about in 2014, I had pens, pencils, and a sketchbook. And there was really no rhyme or reason to it. I was just creating shapes and letters that ended up turning into words. And then I started saying some stuff after that. But lettering is honestly very, I don't want to minimize it, but it's easy. It's you get into it and you just start doing stuff. And if you look at other artists that are out there, Adam JK is an artist that I follow. It looks like a child wrote it, and it's just very crude. It's very if you want to say it's childlike, honestly, but that's part of the great quality of it. It's approachable. It's not highbrow. and it really connects with people. And that's really the charm of his work. And so it's not about it being what you see out there. Now, there are some incredible artists that are doing amazing things. You know, they have a lot of flourishes, and there are all these, you know, wispy lines, and, you know, it's just beautiful to look at. And that's great. And there are other artists that do things that are the complete opposite of those things that are just as valuable. And so I think if you want to get into hand lettering, just get in there. And my suggestion is to know what you want to say and know what you want to do with those words, because that matters. But if you're worried about aesthetic, that is actually the least important thing about lettering, because it can look like anything, but you want to create work that sparks attention. You want to create work that that people are talking about, conversations and all that. And then you can refine the look after that. You can throw in some color, you know, you can throw in a texture here or there, but those words that you're saying are going to be the most important thing. So just get in there and start making work.
Awesome. That was great. So that's going to be our last question for the day. I do have a few thank yous. First and foremost, thank you so much, Eso, for sharing your story and hanging out with us for an hour. That was a lot of fun, and I definitely learned a lot. Thank you to our sponsors. Old Speak is our premier sponsor, but we also have a ton of amazing sponsors that you can find out more information about on our website, which is also where you can get tickets and tune in for the times of our future events. So MidwestDesignWeek.com. Go ahead and check that out. And then I wanted to thank everyone who attended today. We love hearing your questions, but also just getting an opportunity to interact with you. So we'll definitely do events like this in the future. And thank you so much for watching and engaging with our programming.
Yes.
Cool. That's all I had for us today. We'll go ahead and end 2 minutes early, but I'll see you all this evening. And if not, later this week.
Thank you all.